Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We have the special Week 10 edition of the USFL, where we will talk about how little teams care and about how we don't know what's going to go on. But anyways, I'm going to be your host today, Sean, PSU fans to Newsham. Joining me, as always, my other partner in crime here, Alex, Fearmyturtle Hardin. Alex, how's it going today?
It's going pretty well. Week 10, we don't... So to get this kind of out of the way, none of these games matter in any kind of sense in terms of seeding or playoffs. Like everything's set for the playoffs next week. And we were talking a little bit before the show, like just how to approach it. But I mean, the rosters are shallow and it's a developmental league. So why would teams rest guys? Like the whole point of the league is to showcase and get people game film. So, I mean, I would think, generally speaking, they play it straight up. Like teams cannot rest their entire offenses and defenses. Like the rosters aren't deep enough to support that. But there's a possibility that key skill players maybe play a reduced role or get rotated a bit more. But it's going to be a ton of uncertainty going in this week. And there's probably 6 teams where I would expect 2 quarterbacks to take at least a snap. So it's pretty messy. Prize pools are down. It's just a slate to kind of get weird. But yep, that's kind of where we're at with this USFL season.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad situation because generally when you want to get weird, you want to get weird because there's big prize pools. But like this game week, there aren't big prize pools yet. Getting weird probably makes the most sense because everyone's not going to play. Would you agree?
Yeah, you're going off the board, not because like you're trying to like differentiate and be different. It's just because like you really don't know, and you know there's going to be a lot of variance, so you might as well embrace it in any type of top heavy prize pool. So yeah, we'll get into it. There's not much certainty in most of these positions, but we'll kind of go through some of the situations and at least try to provide some context for you all to make your own decisions.
All right, starting at the quarterback situation. So looking through here, as you guys will notice, there are a lot of quarterbacks that we're expecting to take some snaps this week. So the only 2 situations that as of now, and again, so we are recording this Friday morning. We tried to wait as long as possible because we were hoping we get some news. We haven't really gotten tons. So make sure you guys are staying up to the news. Luckily, with the league being very shallow in terms of roster sizes, if people are active, they're probably going to play, which helps you obviously at at running back and receiver, not as much at the quarterback's position. But make sure you're following along with the news. If you're playing this week, you got to be on top of everything. So looking at quarterbacks, it looks like we have Tuamu and Bahar. We sort of expect to get we are expecting as of now for them to get a full workload. That could be subject to change, but what's your thoughts on those 2 at the top of the quarterback list there?
Yeah, it might even be a bit misleading because while we're just those are the only 2 we have for a full snap share. Whereas like Pittsburgh or Michigan, like one of those 2 quarterbacks on each team could take all the snaps and their projection be much higher. It's just they've shown they've shown a more likely kind of rotation, especially like a Pittsburgh. So it's kind of messy, but you'll have to take some shots. Like someone like Eric Barriere for Michigan, like if he starts and plays the whole game, like he's a great play on this slate. And we remember him from some DFS slates when he played when those D2 schools were on. So he has a pretty interesting skill set. But just in general, like just because a quarterback's projected to split doesn't mean that's kind of going to work out that way. And even someone like Jordan Ta'amu, like Brady White, who hasn't played much this season, they could just give him the start because the game is meaningless. So there's literally like no certainty in any of these quarterbacks actually starting. And then a team like New Orleans, we haven't got injury information on them yet. Zach Smith actually came in for Kyle Sloter, who was playing terribly. So Sloter effectively got benched. Zach Smith did pretty well, but then Zach Smith got hurt and Sloter came back in and finished the game. I haven't seen anything on Zach Smith. So it's a scenario where Smith could be out and then maybe you see Sloter's projection go up, but that's the last game of the slate. Then Philadelphia, Cookus left hurt as well. Costello came in and played, and Cookus wasn't on the injury report. So this could be a situation where Cookus just plays all the snaps as normal, and he would be among the highest projected on the slate, or situation where they give Costello the full game, or they could just split it up. start out with their first team and then kind of rotating guys the second half because the game is meaningless. So as you see, there's just a lot of uncertainty in all of these situations.
Yeah, and when we're talking about meaningless games, just in case no one's familiar with it, every game and every team has nothing to play for this week. All the playoff seeding is set, so either teams are in the playoffs in the seed that they're going to have, nothing can change, or teams are eliminated from playoff contention, therefore they don't matter as well. So just from that perspective, for me, for the quarterbacks, I think what I would recommend is avoiding guys that are not mobile and guys that you know really can't be that good, guys like Luis Perez, Kyle Sloter. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense because if you're more a mobile guy, you can obviously, I think there's a better chance they could pay off in just like a reduced workload. Like Eric Barriere could play a half and still get 15 DK points and be fine. Whereas someone like Perez, if he's only playing a half of the snaps, like it's tough for him just getting there on throwing volume for sure.
Yeah. All right. Moving over to the running back position. As you guys see, Matt Colburn comes in as the top running back due to recent volume. So why don't you take it here with the running backs, Alex?
Yeah, so Philly, it was interesting. They deactivated Paul Terry and activated Darnell Holland. So I would have thought that this might be a game where they would have 3 running backs active and rotate that more. But seeing that there's only 2 active running backs, I think both play a pretty solid role. So I think Colburn's still going to get probably close to his normal work. And then we'll see a little bit more Holland probably on the ground than we've seen Terry running the ball lately. So that's kind of an interesting situation. Definitely want to attack the teams, I think, that have 2 active running backs and not 3 or more. So that really is Philly and New Jersey with Victor and Trey Williams. So New Jersey only has 2 running backs active. They put their 3rd running back on the inactive list. So that was kind of interesting. Whereas a team like, like New Orleans, they have Anthony Jones, Jordan Ellis, and Ezra Gray, who played like a quarter of the snaps last week. So I could see that more of like a 3-way split. So I would definitely prioritize the teams with 2 running backs and kind of go from there. You will see only projection for 2 running backs on Michigan with Stevie Scott and Cameron Scarlett. They did sign our boy DeAndre Torrey from North Texas, who is pretty interesting. So I assume he comes in and gets a share of that as well. So again, like Stevie Scott got a lot of volume last week. I would expect the same here, but Torrey could definitely cut into his workload. And Torrey is a guy who big play potential, can catch the ball in the backfield. So like if I was maxing this week, I would probably use some guy like Torrey a bit who just has big play upside and no one will be on. But yeah, that's kind of the summary of the running back breakdown. What do you think,
I think that's a good way to look at it. It's similar to like the quarterback situation where you're removing guys that are not really mobile that make it more difficult for them to smash. The running back situation is a lot better to attack the 2 running back situations. Even if you don't want to attack Colburn because you think he's not going to get as much of a load, you could attack Darnell Holland. I think Darnell Holland could be a really good GPP play. So like attacking the teams that only really have 2 running backs as options, I think that makes a lot more sense than like when you look at some of these other teams like Houston, where you have Whaley, Thompson, Benny LeMay, and you just have 3 guys that could be in there like James Gilbert, Groshek, Madre London, and Pittsburgh, stuff like that. So I think that's definitely a good way to go and look at the running back position.
All right. Yeah, just the last thing to add is I would not get overly anchored to the projection itself and more as look at it as the team, all the guys on the team projection, and view that as the complete pie that could be distributed in different ways. So like you said, with kind of Holland, he's 6,900. He looks overpriced for his role. 5.61 is a projection, but Colburn's projected at 13 points. So that's 19 running back points effectively between the 2. Like if you get a situation where their snap count is flipped and their usage, I mean, the roles kind of get flipped as to what we expect, like that, I mean, that's a realistic possibility. So just because Darnell's 6,900 and only predicts for 5 points doesn't mean he's a terrible play. There's just going to be a lot of variance with these results based on what actually plays out.
For sure. All right, moving over to the receivers. Receivers has been super wonky a good chunk of the season. That we haven't really seen much consistently, especially since Bolden went out. The one guy that still stands out to me a bit is Turpin. Based on what we've seen, they'll get Turpin the ball when Turpin's on the field. So I think that makes sense. You see Bolden's coming back, but we're not expecting maybe as high of a role as he previously had earlier in the season. So what's your thoughts here at the receiving position?
Yeah, receiver's kind of tough. I see this is the position where the rotations will probably has a better chance to kind of proceed as normal than like running backs or quarterbacks probably. There's no really receiver in this league, I think, where like if he got injured this game, they're like, oh no, we can't win the USFL championship because we don't have Rashard Davis or something like that. Bad example, they're not even a playoff team. But I think with the shallow rosters and most teams only have like 4 to 6 receivers anyway, like it's going to be a pretty normal rotation. And someone like Lance Lenoir, who's playing on a team who's not playoff bound, I think he stands out for me in terms of I expect him to play his normal role and get a lot of opportunity. Turpin's interesting. His volume went down a bit with the return of Darius Shepard, who just got fed. Turpin will definitely get his touches, but he is priced over 10K and he's only playing like half the snaps. So that one's a bit thin for me, but he's definitely fine. Marlon Williams has continued being a target monster. That's why you see Bolden down a little bit, just because Marlon's been eating into his share a bit. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to go at receiver. Nothing is necessarily quote unquote safe though.
Yeah, I mean the receiving situation, I definitely think that it's going to be it's pick your poison this week. I do kind of agree with Lenoir, but the rest of them, like I think you want to go with guys that have the big play upside that you know could be running those wind sprints down the sideline, like the guy like Sewell. Like we talked about Sewell on the season quite a bit in that aspect. Like a guy that you know is at least going to probably be out there. They're going to be running long routes where they could potentially catch like 40, 50-yard touchdowns. I'd rather have something like that, I think, this week than guys that are going to maybe be 8 to 10 target type guys, because we just don't know who's going to get the 8 to 10 targets like we normally would when we have more consistency and we have more clarity on like teams that actually need to play the game without trying to rest players or just not really caring. So do you agree with that thought?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And it's going to be hard to put together stacks with the uncertainty at quarterback. So it could be a situation where I could see you play multiple receivers from a teammate. Yeah, I mean, you're just going to have to drill the stack and take chances. It's tough. But like a team like Michigan, where I like both Lenoir and Joe Walker had a big game last week, I could see like just double stacking them with Barriere and hoping he's the guy who starts and plays the whole game.
For sure. All right, moving over to the defense. I have nothing to add on the defense other than just spread it out if you're running GPPs. Who knows who's going to be under center for most of these teams. So what's your thoughts at defense?
Yeah, I mean, I have even less thoughts this week on defense than weeks before. I probably would. The only thing really is just like not play an opposing like ground and pound running back versus a defense like a Mark Thompson versus New Orleans. Because if Mark Thompson has a big game and they're grinding it out on the ground, it's going to give fewer attempts for New Orleans defense to generate scoring plays like sacks or interceptions. So that's really the only thing to add. But I mean, yeah, definitely spread it out. I mean, the big challenge here is like it's a really small GPP, is the main GPP. So like it's not a situation probably where I would play all of the defenses. I'd probably take some stands on a few of them, kind of narrow my player pool a bit, because I don't even think it's a 150 max scenario. So, yep, that's kind of quick and dirty at defense.
For sure. Yeah, we kept it short today. There's not much to talk about. None of the teams have anything to play for. Not a lot of clarity on any of the teams with what's going to actually happen. So it's just a very difficult week to give much of a breakdown to anyone, unfortunately. Alex, anything else you want to add here before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so I would say this week above all others is important to track the news before the game, because like if you get a situation where you get like some surprise inactives or the inactive list is different like 30 minutes before the game, that's stuff you can move on. Like we're looking for things that actually move on and make plays where we have knowledge of the situation. So those might come up at some point during the slate. And I think if you see those, I would attack them pretty heavily and try to take advantage of that.
For sure. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap it up. This will be the last USFL show of the year. We hope you guys enjoyed the USFL content that we've been able to provide. We won't be doing anything for the playoffs because it will be just too short of slates to really have a show be any worth anything. So we won't be doing one for the playoffs. So good luck to everyone on the last week here, and then good luck to everyone on the playoffs as well. For Alex, I am Sean. We will catch you guys later.
Good luck, everybody.